call Dan Hughes up now. And thanks to Barbara Yetman. And I'll bet you how many people realized during her session the thing that you keyed into is free, what was it, iPad? Did any of you notice that for the first time? And now you're all going to be going back like, oh, I hope there's a survey. I hope there's a survey. But Dan, let me call you up. Dan is a student in a Comp 111 class, and I asked him to speak about the interesting turn his research took, both going through original research and published the research, and how he got from playing the role of student to wading around the pool with the scholars. Dan.
I'm actually surprised to see so many people still here. I figured after the sandwiches were out that everybody would go ahead and take out, so I'm all right with that. I'm aiming mostly at the students today, the professors. I hope you guys can take something out of it for a story maybe to give to your students later. But I just want to talk about briefly the transition between being a student in research and being a scholar, and what really comes out to be the difference. And really it just comes out to participation and discussion. Just to throw it out there to begin, I am a nerd, so when we start talking about my research, thank you, when we start talking about it, that'll be where it comes from. When we were chosen in Comp 111 to come up with some type of research project based on a culture that we're a part of, it gave me the opportunity to pick something that I really liked and enjoyed, but I couldn't really narrow it down. I'm sure a lot of us have dealt with that, where you're like, I don't even know what it is that I want to do. But when you're given projects like that, there are so many things that you know you have a joy in that you don't realize you can put research into. And my example being, and this is the reason for the nerd disclaimer, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons after class one particular day, and I thought it was interesting as the people I was playing with had to stop and think about what they were going to do in the game next. Dungeons and Dragons being a game where you role play towards a particular goal as somebody else. And it got me thinking about why do they stop and think about it? What are they thinking about when they are deciding what it is they want to do? And I started getting research into the psychology and also the sociology regarding role play in general, mainly focused on tabletop games, but also in video games, also in theater, anywhere where you would take another role and have to perform it in front of other people. And what I came to find out is, at least in my own personal interviews with the players that I played with, other players from around the world, was that that time happens to be them thinking about what they are, thinking about what that other person is that they're supposed to pretend to be, their role, their character that they're role playing, and then the thought of how do I turn myself into that person. So you're thinking about what you want to do. So I decided that would be an interesting research aspect to go on to. So I started going into that, but to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of, as you can probably imagine, scholastic research on role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons. There's really not a big section in the library devoted to that. But what I ended up doing, and this is the student aspect. I was doing the research, going online, doing all those things that the teachers explained for you to do, and I finally found a single book that happened to be a doctor's dissertation that was then converted into a book regarding just role-playing games and their functions in society. And I was so excited. Has anybody ever done that, where you're doing research and you finally find this one thing where you're like, oh, this is what my paper's going to be about? That's kind of that moment for me. And I was so excited. I was so happy that I was like, oh, look, there's the author's email address. I'm just going to thank you for writing this book. I now have a purpose. So I sent that off to her. Has anybody ever had one of those teachers where if you get them talking about their favorite topic, they talk forever and you end up not doing in class what you were supposed to? Mm-hmm. The entire academic community is like that. I got responses back from her going, oh, what is your project about? I want to know all about it. So I sent it to her, and she's like, you know, so-and-so does this. And she got somebody from the University of Tampere in Finland to respond to me, and he started talking to me about my topics. He's like, you know what, who would do this? There's a doctorate in Australia. And he emailed that off to them. And so now my inbox is literally exploding with all of these emails from all these other people. And I brought it up to Dr. Grove, and I was like, these people are crazy. They play Dungeons and Dragons all day long. And she goes, that's different from you, how? So what we got into, and this is where you get into being a scholar, you'll find out that there are plenty of people researching exactly what it is you like to do, why you like to do it, how come it is the way you do it, whether it's music or games or literature or anything that you want. what evolves from that one little piece of contact, actually reaching out and saying, hey, I see you there, and I like this, puts you into this discussion. It puts you into this one-on-one, or in my case, one on 15,000, of people who enjoy the same thing you do, and then they help you refine your work. I'm sure you all have been in research situations where, like, you know, if I had an expert that I could talk to on a regular basis, this helps me so much. A lot of us probably do that when we do our research papers. Well, my grandfather happens to be an engineer, so all of my projects are on engineering because I can just interview him all the time. Doing this allows you to then be a part of the discussion. What was interesting about mine is contacting the direct publishers of the book, and I don't think a lot of students do that. I don't think they know that they can do that. Where when people publish this type of stuff, it's not like they just want to throw it out there and they don't ever want to hear from the world again. They're putting their point of view out there because they want discussion back. So you will be surprised if you try to contact some of the authors of these books. They are so happy to hear from you. They get back to you and they want to talk to you about it. And you can actually bounce your ideas off of these authors. They're not this immutable, you know, glass ceiling that you can't get through. Those people are published, and I can't talk to them. No, she was where I was 6 years ago doing the exact same thing. So reaching out, talking to them, then I got to bounce ideas off of it. And throughout this entire project, I came up with one of my own ideas that they started going, you know, we've never really thought of that before. We talked about the reason why people act the way they do, but we never thought about the process of between being me, being them, and that time in between. So there's now a new idea called RP lag, role play lag, which is a new term that's coming out in psychology, which is determining that gap between acting as me and acting as he or she, where you have to figure out where you are, figure out where they are, and come to some type of understanding. Because you can role play somebody who's evil or bad or does bad things, and when you do it for the first time, I don't know if anybody's ever done this, when you have to role play somebody that's not yourself, you kind of have a hard time doing it at first. And you have to, like, you never thought that way before. So just in closing, I just want people to know that you can go out and you can talk to these people. They're humans like you and me, and they seem to be more attention-starved than you would think. But the entire academic community is out there and waiting for you. Email the authors of the sources that you've had. Send a letter to the letter of the article that you found on EBSCO or whatever it is. They're going to talk back to you, I guarantee it. And they're a great source of information to help you refine and you get stuff going. You never know what may come out of it or what role you'll take in the future.